All right, so today we're taking a deep dive into media ministry in this digital age. And joining us, we have quite the expert, would you say?
Oh, absolutely. We're lucky to have his insights. Arthur A.J. Holmes, he's kind of a media ministry guru, wouldn't you say?
He really is, and he doesn't disappoint. This deep dive, let me tell you, we've got some really meaty stuff to unpack. Really practical advice on how ministries can use technology to really spread their message effectively.
What I found fascinating right off the bat is how he emphasizes the strategic side of it. It's not just about, hey, technology is cool, let's use it. It's about why are we using this? What are we hoping to achieve?
He's all about being intentional, like having a purpose driving everything you do. And he actually kicks things off talking about
Yeah.
this, the why behind the what. He reminds us that every action should tie back to the Great Commission.
Which, for anyone who may not be familiar, is that call for Christians to spread their faith.
Exactly. And here's the thing. He argues that while that core message stays the same, the way we share it needs to change with the times.
Of course. I
Mhm.
mean, we don't use horses and buggies anymore.
Exactly. We've got cars and planes, the world changes.
Yeah.
Ministry needs to change too.
And you know what? He doesn't shy away from calling out those churches that are stuck in their old ways.
Hmm.
He even says, and it's a bit provocative, but he says sometimes a 10-year-old might get this new tech faster than someone, who's 70.
That's true.
It's a generational thing.
Yeah.
And we need to be willing to learn from whoever, even if they're younger.
Oh, 100%. Like, who hasn't had to ask their teenager for help with their phone?
All the time.
So how does he suggest churches navigate this whole digital world?
Well, he talks about establishing what he calls the standard. And it starts with a really, really clear mission statement.
Not just some vague thing you put on a wall and forget about.
No, this is the guiding principle. This is it. This
Yeah.
is the North Star for your digital outreach. And he even gives you his ministry's mission statement. And it's a capture, communicate, and distribute God's word using technology.
I like that.
And what I thought was so interesting is he emphasizes how this statement then becomes the justification for everything you do in media ministry. Whether you're upgrading equipment, maybe you need a faster internet connection, are you hiring a videographer?
It all comes back to that mission statement.
That is the guiding principle.
So it's about having that clear why.
Yes.
Why are you doing this?
Yes.
That informs every decision, every purchase, every post.
Every piece of content you create. And that actually leads beautifully into the next point, which is, okay, you've got to expand beyond the walls of your church, right?
It's not just about who's sitting in those queues anymore.
He's a big proponent of this global mindset.
Global.
Technology lets us connect with people all over the world, and he says that starts with like a really strong online presence.
Okay, so what does that look like? A strong online presence.
Well, he even talks about creating like a really unique handle for your ministry.
Like almost a code name.
Yeah, like an online identity. It's that short, memorable name that ties all your platforms together.
Oh, I see. So it's like whether it's your website, social media, or even your online giving, it's all connected.
Yeah, it's that cohesive brand presence. And he gives really great tips for brainstorming this handle. He suggests using your location, an abbreviation, or something that's catchy and easy to remember.
Okay, so for example,
He uses his own church, Antioch Baptist Church, but there were actually 3 other churches with that same name in their area, so they had to think, okay, how do we differentiate ourselves? And they decided to go with Antioch Farina, incorporating their location to make it unique.
it's such a simple but effective way to stand out,
Exactly.
especially online where it's so crowded.
Hmm.
I love how practical he is. He even tells you to go to like a GoDaddy or Namecheap and just see if it's available.
Yeah, and secure that domain name. He talks about how your website is your online home base. This is it. This is where everything comes together.
It's so true. And speaking of websites, I know a lot of churches, they're so focused on social media these days that they kind of treat their website as an afterthought.
He would completely disagree with that.
But he's like, no, your website is crucial.
It's so essential. It's fun. He actually compares it to like Vizio and Tesla. They've got this whole multi-platform approach. They're on social media to engage, build that buzz, but they always bring you back to their website.
To learn more, to really engage with the brand,
That's it. That's where everything is.
it makes sense. Your website is where people can find like the nitty gritty, like all those details about your church. What's your mission? What do you believe? What are the service times? All that good stuff.
And he really wants us to think about the website from the perspective of someone who's never been there before. What are they looking for?
Like a first-time visitor.
Yeah, what kind of impression are you making with that website? And then on top of that, it can't just be static. You can't just put it up there and let it sit there. He says, just like your church building, your website needs to be alive and constantly
Oh,
updated.
well, I love that.
Fresh content, current events, good visuals, make it exciting.
It's like you wouldn't want people to walk into your church and see, like, outdated bulletins and, like, faded posters.
Exactly.
You want it to be welcoming and fresh and current.
It should reflect who you are. And it's funny, he even mentions these AI tools like ChatGPT, which I thought was really interesting. You can use that to help you summarize content, to come up with some snappy copy for your website. It's about using the tools available.
Okay, so we've got our mission statement.
Mm.
We're establishing our online identity. We're building a strong website. What's next?
Well, we can't talk about digital ministry without talking about social media.
True.
And this is where he gets fired up.
Yeah.
And I'll give you a hint. It's not about bombarding people with Bible verses.
Yeah, that doesn't sound very fun.
He actually compares ineffective social media to those annoying salespeople you get at the mall who just shove flyers in your face and don't take a hint.
Oh, yeah, the ones you try to avoid making eye contact with.
He's like, don't be that church online.
Don't be that church.
Instead of chasing people down, offer them something valuable.
Give them a reason to want to follow you.
Exactly, like helpful resources, engaging conversations that are meaningful, be a source of encouragement, something positive.
So it's about building relationships.
Yes, and offering value, not just like broadcasting messages.
I like that. He wants churches to really shift their mindset, I think.
100%. He actually uses this really clever example. He talks about how PepsiCo has all these different brands, right? You've got Pepsi for the cola lovers, and then you've got Lay's for the snack people, and then Quaker for your oatmeal. It's about realizing a one-size-fits-all approach doesn't work.
So it's about understanding your audience.
Yes, and tailoring your message. He says churches need to think the same way about their content online. You've got TikTok for short videos, Instagram is very visual, YouTube is for those longer videos, Twitter's for those quick updates and conversations.
Each platform has its own vibe.
And audience. It's about knowing where people are and adapting to it.
So it's not just about creating good content. It's about creating the right content for the right platform.
And this is where the data comes in.
Data.
He's big on this. Look at your social media analytics. What's resonating? What's falling flat? He actually compares it to fishing. If you're not catching anything, are you going to keep casting your line in the same spot?
You've got to find where the fish are biting.
Exactly. Try a different location, a different lure.
Right.
It's the same with social media. Use the data, see what's working.
Don't be afraid to adjust.
Exactly. Experiment. It's always changing.
Social media changes all the time.
Okay.
Okay, let's talk about something that can be a little bit, touchy sometimes. Online giving.
It's essential, and Holmes is a huge, huge proponent of it. I mean, he's not wrong. The world is digital. We've got to keep up.
So how does he suggest churches approach it?
He really likes these platforms. He mentions Givelify and Tithe.
Oh, yeah, I've heard of those.
They're user-friendly, and the fees are really minimal. And he points out most of these actually allow the giver to cover the fee if they want to, so the church gets the full donation.
That's great. But he's also really big on making it clear this isn't about replacing those traditional giving methods.
Right.
Unless, of course, that's your church's intention.
It's about giving options. It's another way to give in a way that's easy for people.
I like how he uses the grocery store analogy. Not everyone is there for the same thing, but there are hundreds of options.
There's something for everyone.
Exactly.
And that's what this is.
So some people still want to use that offering plate, and that's totally fine. Others might find online giving way more convenient.
It's about preference and meeting people where they are.
Exactly. Now, he did mention a really practical tip, something to keep in mind when it comes to setting up these accounts.
Oh, yes. Make sure they are in the church's name.
Not an individual's name?
Yes. Not your name, not the pastor's name. It's about avoiding those tax headaches later on down the road. Smart. Okay, so we've covered the why behind this whole digital ministry, the importance of that strong online presence, social media. We've talked about online giving. What else is there?
Well, he really gets into the how. He talks about creating those engaging live streams, how to preach to a camera, which is a whole other beast, right?
Oh, I bet.
And now, let's jump into this whole world of live streaming with AJ Holmes.
Which has become so huge, especially in recent years. But like he said, it's not enough to just, point a camera at the stage and hope for the best.
You've really got to approach it strategically, right?
Yeah.
Think about how to make it engaging for those people who are watching online.
Because they're just as important as the people who are physically there.
100%. And he gives this great breakdown of like a typical church live stream. And he starts with that pre-service time. He's really big on utilizing those few minutes before the service actually starts.
Oh, that's interesting. Because you've got people tuned in, they're ready, they're waiting. Don't waste that opportunity.
It's like the pre-show entertainment.
Yeah.
Like, you go to a concert or a movie and they kind of get you pumped up for what's about to happen.
Exactly. Build that anticipation. And so he suggests, like, countdown timers, you could play pre-recorded announcements, showcase maybe some upcoming events, or even, this is cool, have members of the church deliver, like, live welcomes.
Ooh, I like that.
Imagine, right, you're tuning in online and you see a familiar face welcoming you.
It makes you feel seen. It makes you feel like you're part of something.
It's so welcoming. And then once the service actually starts, Holmes is all about, like, treat this live stream like a professionally produced TV show.
Okay, so up your game, churches.
He says, think about it. No one wants to watch a football game from the nosebleed section, right?
You want to be down in the action.
You want the close-ups, the different angles. You want to feel like you're right there.
It's about creating an experience.
Absolutely. Don't forget about your online viewers once the service is going. He encourages pastors to really make that eye contact with the camera, acknowledge those online viewers.
It's so easy to forget they're there when you're in the moment.
Talk to them.
Directly, not just like, a general, hey to everyone watching.
Yes. He even uses this great example. He's like, imagine if your church is in Colorado and I'm tuning in from the USS Abraham Lincoln, a Navy ship. Where am I supposed to be in the building? You know?
Like that.
It makes you realize we're not limited by those physical walls anymore.
You really have to think beyond. It's a global audience.
And, just little things like, when it's time for the offering, instead of just showing someone awkwardly passing that plate around, why not have, like, a pre-recorded segment? Or for announcements.
It's about adapting to this online world.
He wants you to think of those online viewers as if they're right there in the front pew.
I love that. Now, speaking of that, let's talk about this whole thing of preaching to a camera.
Which is hard. I mean, even for seasoned preachers, it's different.
Oh, I can imagine. It's intimidating.
He compares it to, like, public speaking 101, but instead of a room full of people, it's a camera lens.
It's like you're talking to one person, but that one person represents thousands, potentially.
Exactly. And he says, even though it might feel weird, eye contact is so important. Look at that lens. Imagine you're talking to someone you care about, and you're trying to convey that warmth and connection through the camera.
What about, like, gestures and all that? Is that something you need to be mindful of?
He says, think about how it's going to translate on screen. Nothing too subtle because it'll get lost, but nothing too over the top either. It's a balance.
It's about finding that sweet spot. So essentially, you have to be really aware of how you're coming across because it's different on camera.
Be mindful.
What other things does he talk about for really preaching effectively in this new digital age?
He talks a lot about really using descriptive language, like painting those pictures with your words. You've got to bring those stories and illustrations to life.
Oh, storytelling.
Yes.
He actually recommends this book, The Power of Habit. And it talks about engaging the senses, which really helps people remember things. And it made me think about all the parables in the Bible. They're so vivid.
They are. You can picture them, can't you?
You can practically see them happening, and that's what makes them so memorable.
They stick with you. That's what Holmes is getting at. Whether you're in the room or watching online, that storytelling element is so powerful. Make it relatable.
So what are some of the key things that make a good story, a good parable, in the context of, like, a sermon?
He talks about creating that suspense. You want people on the edge of their seats, right? Use really descriptive language that evokes emotion. Draw people into the narrative. Make them feel like they're right there with you.
It's about connecting on an emotional level.
And speaking of connecting in new ways, Holmes isn't afraid of AI either, artificial intelligence.
Oh, AI.
Yeah.
Everyone's talking about it. It feels like it's everywhere. What's his take on it in the church?
He's realistic. He knows there are potential benefits, but he's also got some concerns.
Okay, so let's break that down. What kind of benefits could AI have in a church setting?
He talks about how it can personalize things, content, and it can offer that 204/7 support, automate tasks, even analyze all that data churches are collecting so they can be more strategic with their outreach.
Oh, interesting.
Like, imagine you have this chatbot that can answer those really basic questions people might have about the church. Or it can offer resources or even have a deeper conversation about faith. It could free up pastors' time.
Wow, that's kind of mind-blowing. It could really change how churches operate. But what are his concerns with it?
Well, he's asking those tough questions like, what is the role of technology in faith? Can it be manipulative? Are we going too far?
It's a valid concern.
Yeah.
Are we replacing that human connection with a machine?
Exactly. And he's like, we've got to make sure that technology is always serving that human purpose, not the other way around.
It's a tool. We don't want to become slaves to it.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's shift gears a little bit and talk about something else he's really passionate about. Generational ministry.
He's very emphatic about creating content that resonates with everyone, not just like one specific age group.
It's about the big picture. We're all in this together, right?
100%. And it made me think when he said this, he's like, think about a ship that just keeps sailing and sailing, but it never stops to let any new passengers on board. Eventually, it's just a ghost ship, right? Aimless. And I think that's such a good picture of what can happen when churches don't, like, invest in the next generation.
It's about keeping that ship afloat, keeping it moving forward.
Exactly. He's really challenging church leaders to be proactive. Seek out those younger voices because they have something to say.
Well, let's be honest, they're the future, Rick.
And create a culture of mentorship. Like, work together. Don't just be stuck in the old ways of doing things.
Don't be afraid to try something new.
Exactly.
So what are some things churches can do? Like, how do you actually bridge that gap? What are some practical steps?
He says, think outside the box. Experiment. But it's not about trying to be the cool kid on the block. It's about really being interested in what those different generations care about. How do they communicate?
It's about understanding them.
And being willing to meet them where they are. He challenges churches. He's like, ask yourselves these questions. Which generations are we missing? Who are we not reaching? Which age groups, are barely represented in our church?
Those are tough questions, but good questions to ask.
Yeah. It's about finding those blind spots so you can reach more people.
So it's not enough to just have a youth group or a young adult thing. It's about making sure everyone feels like they belong, no matter how old they are.
He suggests, like, creating spaces where those different generations can interact, learn from each other. And obviously, we've got to incorporate technology in a way that's going to connect with those younger generations, give them a voice, empower those young leaders.
Oh, it makes me think about that story he told about that young man, Chris, who wanted to be in the church band.
Oh, yeah. The older musicians weren't really paying attention to him.
Right. They were kind of like, whatever, kid.
But Holmes saw something in him.
He saw his passion. He saw that potential.
And even though Holmes wasn't a drummer himself, he decided, I'm going to mentor this kid.
How cool is that?
Encouraged him to learn from the others, gave him a shot, let him play. And eventually, Chris becomes a valued member of that band.
That's so awesome. It's about seeing those gifts and nurturing them, no matter what your age or experience level is.
100%. And that applies to everything, not just music.
Think about it. The tech team, the people who do the teaching, the outreach, even just the administration.
We've got to be preparing that next generation to take the reins.
And not just to do things our way, but to find their own way,
And absolutely. What are those unique gifts that they're bringing to the table?
Okay, so as we kind of wrap things up with Holmes, I thought it was really cool how he brought it back around to this idea of legacy. Like, what are we leaving behind? What lasts?
And for him, he's very clear. It's about using those gifts and that passion to share something bigger than yourself. And for him, that's the gospel.
And you can just tell he's so genuine about it. It's not just a job for him. It's this deep-seated belief.
It's who he is. It comes out in everything he says. He loves seeing how technology is connecting people with God, how it can bridge those divides, offer hope, make a difference.
It's inspiring.
He's seen how powerful it can be. Like, even just a simple video or social media post can change someone's whole life.
It's true. You just never know what's going to resonate with someone.
And that's the thing. It's not just about entertainment. It's about transformation. And that is a powerful motivator.
That's his why.
What's yours?
Ooh, good one.
He leaves us with that question.
What's our why? What motivates us to do what we do? What kind of impact are we hoping to have on the world?
It makes you think, doesn't it? Because when you have that clear sense of purpose, it changes things.
It does. It keeps you going, even when it's hard. And when you combine that purpose with all the tools available today, it's incredible what we can accomplish.
And that's the message I hope everyone takes away from this deep dive. Don't be afraid to use your voice. Share your gifts. Make a difference.
We have the power to change the world, one click, one like, one post, one connection at a time. And I can't think of a better way to wrap things up with Arthur J. Holmes.
Amen to that.
Thank you so much for joining us. Until next time, keep on learning, keep on growing, and keep on shining your light.